we didn't do it. You coming to the greenhouse? Come on. Bless you. Hello, welcome back to Sage and Stone Homestead. My name is Heather. I have made a to-do list for myself for this week. It's going to be a busy week just in general, but I also have some pretty major goals for the garden. We are a tad behind this year, but we have a long season, so I'm really not too worried about it. Lots of birds in here. Out the door. The birds seem to find their way in here just fine, and then when I come in, they can't figure out how to get out. So part of what I need to do on my to-do list is planting. I would like to really be more on top of succession planting certain crops than I have been in years past. And I would like to succession plant some of our favorite beans. These are Kalima bush beans. These beans I am growing in our raised bed garden, and we are gonna harvest some of those on the video today and probably preserve some. I did have some of these mature last year here in the greenhouse, and I had collected the seeds. I just need to figure out where I put them. These are heirlooms, so you can save the seed back and get the true version of the plant out of that seed. Got some empty spots in the green stack over here, and we're gonna plug these in. It's been a couple weeks since I really intended on doing this, but we're getting to it. Better late than never. I have a couple radishes that have really gone by. My girls were in here the other day snacking on the radish pods. It's one of their favorite snacks, so these have been stripped pretty well bare, but that's what we had them for. We just put this green stalk together this year, and there is quite a bit of soil settling, especially on the bottom tier, oddly enough. I don't know that rodents haven't been getting in here and kind of displacing the soil. It's possible. My solution for the rodent situation is something that we're going to talk about on today's video. I think I'm going to put 2 seeds per planting hole. It's kind of what I like to do. Basically all I'm doing for these upper tiers is just setting the beans down on top of the soil, and then I'm placing the new soil on top. I just had this bucket sitting on the floor of the greenhouse, and we've been getting a lot of rain, so the rain tends to pool up on this side of the greenhouse. So this pot has been getting bottom watered, and the soil inside is absolutely crawling with worms. Can you see that? These guys are going to be really good for the nutrition in this green stalk. Whole bunch of worms and worm goodies. This raised bed greenhouse situation is new this year. We just started converting our greenhouse area from an in-ground growing space into a raised bed growing space, and we did so at exactly the right time. As I mentioned, it's been such a wet year. The ground has been super saturated, and I think that if I had an entire garden planted in here, it wouldn't be doing half as well as it is. But because we used to plant in ground, there's a bunch of holes from the previous planting spaces in the weed fabric that's on the ground here. A lot of them got covered up by the beds, but some of them didn't. And I thought, why don't I stick something in those holes? We've got some mammoth sunflower seed from a long time ago. I might have grown these in 2020, yes. 2020 is when I saved these seeds. So I'm gonna be putting quite a few here in the greenhouse, and it's gonna be pretty neat. See, in between these 2 beds right here, there's a hole. It's essentially pure clay. So what I may elect to do is just kind of depress the clay down a little bit, put a few seeds in the hole. Remember, these are older seeds, so I'm gonna put quite a few. Take some of our lovely worm compost, put it in. Eventually, I will probably cover these holes with more weed fabric or something, but I figured for now this was a fun way to make sure weeds don't really grow in these holes. I'm actually surprised we're not seeing more weeds come out of these holes than we are. Hey boys. You won't eat those, the chickens will. One of the things I needed in here is one of these. How many of you recognize this? It looks like the ghost of Okra's past. That's essentially what it is. This at one point was nice and bright pink. This is the Okinawa pink okra, and this is one of the very simple ways to save seed from okra. You just let it mature on the plant and you can pick it off and you can save it just like this, right in the pod. It is a little bit humid in the greenhouse, so I don't know if this is gonna crack open as readily as they usually do. See inside there? Lots and lots of seed. One dropped. We're gonna plant these too. Back here is our pumpkin patch. I forgot to visit this in our last garden tour, and really I haven't done much besides kind of glance over the fence every once in a while this past couple of weeks. Look at how big these plants have gotten in no time. It looks like I might have 3 out of the 17, I think it was, holes that did not get any kind of germination from a Dutch fork pie pumpkin, and I'd like to plug in some sunflowers in those empty holes. The military is up there training, so that's the helicopter you hear. They've been shooting missiles off too, so we might get to hear that. Good bit of these mammoth sunflower seeds right in these holes where the pumpkins didn't germinate. Did you hear that? That came from the helicopter. Besides the one time I watered the pumpkins in when I initially planted the seeds, I haven't watered out here at all because we have gotten so much rain I haven't needed to, and I'm not really mad about that. It's one task that I don't have to think about, at least for now. Hello, handsome. Over here in the raised bed garden, I put in some chicken and dumplings cowpeas into these start trays. They are basically outgrowing these pots, and the goal, hopefully, is to get them in the ground soon. I would like to kind of stagger my chicken and dumplings with the Okinawa pink okra. Sorry. Over on the lane, and the lane is an area of our homestead that I haven't talked about much this year. It was a garden space that we started last year. It's 100 feet long of trellis, and I need to do a little bit of maintenance in there before we can plant, but that is absolutely #1 goal for this week. So all I'm doing is wherever the chicken and dumplings cowpeas did not germinate, I'm plugging in 1 Okinawa pink okra seed. Okra grows really fast, especially when the days start to get hot. So even though I feel a little bit late on getting this in, I have a feeling they're going to just explode. I have not done any amending of the lane, the garden space where these plants are going to be going. I'll have to ask Levi. Things like cowpeas, beans, anything really in the legume family, and okra don't need a ton of nutrition to produce a lot of food. So that's the reason that we're putting these crops in there this year. I didn't have the time to amend it. And I actually think eventually I am going to make that a raised bed space as well. Our clay has grown a lot of food really nicely before, but it's not the most ideal thing. I've been growing in the ground with weed fabric, and the weeds around here just take over the weed fabric in the matter of just a couple of years. Putting in raised beds that are gonna last is pretty expensive, so it's gonna take us some time. We're focusing on the greenhouse right now. This is a lot of okra. That's okay. I know some people that will take some extra okra plants, no problem. So here is our original patch of Kalima bush beans of the year. We put these in, I think it was at the beginning of April, if I remember right. And we just started harvesting at some point last week. When the beans start coming on, I do need to be checking them every other day and picking them every other day just to keep on top of it. As I'm picking beans too, I'm noticing that there are some yellowing leaves among the plants. This is quite normal. The lower leaves sometimes can catch a little bit of disease. There's a lot less airflow in between the plants, and it just kind of happens with beans. It's not that there's a problem with yellowing leaves, but I do like to pick them out. Just kind of toss them into the walkway here. You could compost these down. It's not like it takes a whole bunch of extra time to do that little bit of pruning step, and I feel like it's going to buy our plants a little bit more lifespan. I don't know, I could be wrong about that, but it's just a habit that I have. I think it's a good one. See that little slug right there? That's one of the reasons that moving out the diseased, dying leaves can help. Those leaves are food for guys like these. So we don't want them ruining what we want to eat. So removing those diseased and dying leaves just helps mitigate pest pressure. It doesn't eliminate it completely, but it helps. I think this is it for now, but this is pretty good. Like I said, I harvest the beans every other day, and I harvested 2 days ago, but I got less than this, so looks like harvest season is in full swing for these beans. Bush beans really only produce for about 2 or 3 weeks, and then they really start to get sick. They essentially succumb to the heat and the humidity, but that's why we succession sow. That's why we're planting another crop in the greenhouse, and then I plan on putting another crop in this green stuck out here. At the moment, I have some cherry tomatoes out here. This is called a Tiny Tim variety. They don't get very big, but a lot of these plants are succumbing to disease. This is because of the amount of rain that we've gotten. It's essentially rained almost nonstop for probably the better part of a month or more. And so these plants didn't really stand a chance. But these tomatoes are actually heirlooms. And so when I save the seed, I will get the seed that's true to the mother plant. I will get a Tiny Tim tomato out of the seed that's in this little tomato. That's not the case for every seed, but it is the case for heirloom seed. So I've been collecting these too. Basically, as soon as they blush, I let them ripen inside. I'm sure along with the helicopters you are hearing the many birds that we have in the background. We actually don't mind the bird presence. They do help us quite a lot here in the garden, but they also love the taste of a nice fresh tomato. Speaking of things the birds like to eat, let's see. Good morning. It is the next day, and these are the beans that I've gotten over the last few days from our little bean patch. I could save some of these back for fresh eating. I don't plan on serving beans tonight, and if I want beans tomorrow, that would be harvesting time, and I may as well just pick out of the garden and then cook them straight away. So these guys we are going to can today. This is going to be a smaller batch of beans, so I'm going to be using my Nesco electric pressure canner. Beans are a low acid food, and so we do need to pressure can them. And as you can see, this is how I like to store them while I'm waiting. I just put them loosely tied into a grocery bag like this. I haven't washed these, and I don't plan to. It's probably a rule that you're supposed to, but these are clean enough for me. So what we need to do is snap off the tip of the bean where it's connected to the plant where the little tiny stem is. I like to leave this tail on. Can you see that right there? I don't find that it causes any kind of issue. And the Kalima bush beans are stringless, so I don't have to sit here and try to peel the strings that can sometimes happen on some varieties out of the seam here. These guys don't have that. So I'm just gonna put a podcast or YouTube video in my ear and break these into about 1-inch pieces like that. One of the reasons that I plan to use the Nesco pressure canner today is it's a canner that I feel comfortable walking away from because everything is automated, and we can use that opportunity to go down to the barn and check out the new inhabitants. And I don't mean the goats that I just bought. I showed you guys already. I have something else. So the water is boiling. This is how I like to do things. This electric kettle has been awesome for my canning experience. I might have to fill the kettle more than once, but that's okay. And I did place a teaspoon of salt in each jar. Barely didn't do it. It's okay. Wipe the rims down. This looks very familiar to a video that I just recently did on canning our mushrooms. The canning process is pretty much the same. Actually, a lot in homesteading is pretty much the same. We're doing the same thing over and over every day, but there's actually a lot of comfort in that. The predictability of that is really easy to get used to. Ready for the canner. Is that better? Over here in this dark corner of the world, I have my Nesco canner. There is a rack that goes inside, and this will fit 4 quarts, which is what we have today. This particular canner requires 8 cups of hot water in order to not run out of water during the canning process. Just gonna double check canning times. I think it's 25 minutes for quarts of green beans, but I've been wrong before, and it's good to double check. I'm just looking on the National Center for Home Food Preservation website. Yes, 25 minutes. So put it on high. Now I can't run outside just yet. I do need to manage this for the 10 minutes of vent time. But as soon as that venting is done, we will flip the toggle to airtight and go outside to the barn. All right. It's gonna be hard to see on camera, flashing E0. So we're good to put that on airtight. And from now on, the whole thing is automated. Don't you look nice in your new collar, huh? How are you doing, Miss Winnie? Hello. Mama's goats out here enjoying the grass. How are you, Elsa? Yesterday we had yet another rainy day, as you could tell. At the end of the day, we got caught out in a little bit of it. So they were kind of cooped up inside with some hay, but it's not like fresh grass. How's it going up against the wall here? You guys holding it together? As you can see by some of the udders, it is close to milking time. Look at Breezy. She's been looking so good. Yes, we're peeping you. Oh, I hear a noise. I hear a noise in the barn. Trying not to have anyone join us. It might be impossible. Well, hello. Your hammock slipped down, didn't it? Good morning. Oh, come here. I do not think that the purring from this little kitty is gonna come up on camera. Oh, but we recently just were given some barn cats. We have had quite the rodent situation really ever since we moved in here, but it's been pretty bad the last year, and we have some friends who have barn cats who they let have kittens because a lot of people in the community really have a need for barn cats for the same reason that we do. And these two little boys are joining us on the farm. I haven't named them yet. I did have a barn cat for a really short while, short enough to where she never ended up being on camera. She was an adult cat that we just moved over here straight away. I just stuck her right here in the milking parlor, and she escaped. She came, I saw her a couple times over the next few days, but she really didn't want to stay in our barn, and she ended up being found dead underneath our neighbor's carport. And there's a couple things that we think may have happened to her. But after that situation, we really were wondering, how do you train a cat to stay? Like, how does that work? I've only ever had house cats in my life, and so all of that was new to me. I figured you could just feed a cat and it would stay, and that was not true for her. Especially independent cats, when all they really need to do is hunt, they don't need you for food. So in researching, I learned that you need to contain cats for at least a couple of weeks inside their spot so they can associate that spot with home base. Now, this puppy crate is kind of small. I did purchase them a catio that I'm going to set up in the barn this week, so they'll have a lot more space to run around, but stay contained and get used to this being home base. But also, these guys being kittens as opposed to an adult cat, and there's two of them, I think there's a lot going for them in the positive direction for staying around. The orange kitty is very, very sweet. And this little guy's coming around. Little gray tabby, also a male. A little bit more skittish, a little less lovey. That's okay. We've got an eye booger. Yeah. So I had an idea that we could have cheese names for our barn cats. The cat that we had only for a couple days, her name was Cheddar. I'd like to reuse that at some point, but not right now. And I'm thinking possibly Colby for this kitten and Mozzie for this one, like mozzarella. Do you have any other really cool cheese names? I would love to hear them, but we'll see if those stick, huh? Real foxy, you're too much. I'll come milk in a minute, okay? We got the kitty's catio all set up. This was not bad to put together at all, and it was pretty inexpensive. I got this off of Amazon for about $60. This is a lot more space for them. I feel a lot better about the fact that it's going to be best to kind of contain them in the barn for the next couple of weeks when they have this much space with all these tiers and things to play with. They've been really loving the hammock, and that's been awesome to watch. I'm really excited about this. I've had cats my whole life, but they've always been either indoor cats or indoor-outdoor cats. I've never had just a strictly outdoor cat, and that's what these cats are going to be. They're going to be mousers for our farm. I really was nervous, and I'm still nervous about them kind of eating up my garden plants and using my garden as a bathroom. The hope is that I can litter box train them, and they will kind of just know that they need to come here to use the bathroom. At least temporarily, that will be a solution. If we do end up having issues with the kitties in the garden, we'll just have to cross that bridge when we get there. It's actually been several hours since this canner ran its cycle and did its thing. As I mentioned, this electric canner is automated, so as soon as the 25 minutes was over, it shuts off and it slowly comes down out of pressure, and it looks like all of our jars sealed. Now, it's not exactly a great habit to get into, to shut off the canner and walk away and just come back to the jars at your leisure. I will do this with some things like green beans, like meat, but with things like tomato sauce, the slower cool down process that the jars get while in the canner can contribute to something called flat sour. It's this heat-loving bacterium that is not harmful to eat, but it can proliferate if the jars take a while to cool down. So go ahead and look that up. I'll link some information in the description box below. Like I said, it's not harmful. It can just make your tomato products taste pretty sour, and that's not the goal. I haven't had that problem with green beans. We've got 4 sealed jars here, and in a couple days we will harvest again.